Good evening, people. Welcome to the Perpetual-Time channel. As you can see, we've got Spencer here from BQW Watches.
Hi, guys.
Got Dee Love. And we've got Thomas Burnett.
How you doing, guys?
And don't forget Giuseppe, our Italian brother from Brothers in Time.
Shall I do the introduction, Alex? Shall I do the introduction? Hey, guys, welcome back to the program. Welcome back to the Perpetual, the Dee Time, the Escapement Show. And that man, that watch guy London, Spencer from BQ Watches, who sold 50,000 watches.
Oh, no. Oh,
there we go. Oh my God, we got the Paul Falk, the crime specialist in the house.
Hang on, guys. I've said to you, I'm happy to come on as long as there isn't Paul Falk there.
There we go.
Thanks, you got rid of him. Hey.
And we've got some authentic Italian cuisine in the house. We've got Giuseppe from Brothers in Time, and we have, let's not forget, the one and only Thomas Burnett, the foundation member of the watch community.
Hey,
welcome,
Thomas.
fellas. Welcome.
Giuseppe.
Hello.
By the way, what a great name that is. That's such a good name, isn't it?
It's a bit of an old-fashioned name, and it's like, but no one could think of a name, so they'd call themselves after their granddads, or it's.
But what if you're in a bar or a club and you wander up to the girl and she says, "Hey, what's your name?" Giuseppe. It's such a great name.
No, Joe. I keep it simple, Joe.
So, Giuseppe, you know that Paul and Spencer, well, you exhibited at the Brighton Watch Show, didn't you? Yeah,
I did, yes. But Paul's remember your Brighton Watch Show?
I do.
Back in 2019, I think it was.
19, I think. Yeah.
November 19. That's a
it.
fateful day when I first met Paul. Giuseppe, just wanted to ask you there, what did you get paid to exhibit at that show? Did Paul pay you?
Here we go.
Spencer, I don't think, seeing as you're going to put your neck on the line and start doing exhibiting, I don't think you want to know how much he would have paid. Go on, how much did you pay?
I said, how much did you pay him?
Yeah,
I can't remember. It wasn't that much.
It wasn't expensive.
It was a good show. It was a good show. My first show, or our first show. Yeah, it was good.
I've just had Martin from Box and Dock say he's going to join us fully nude.
Oh no, I'm definitely off.
So, Paul, I did get a glimpse of your video today about the little glimpse, the little promo. Rolex gave yourself a bit of a teaser, didn't they, today? But you've studied it in depth. Thomas, I know you have a different perspective on things. What are you thinking at the moment in regards to what you've seen?
I mean, the first thing that caught my eye was the orange dial, and I instantly thought orange oyster perpetual. Orange OP. They're bringing a bit of the color back to the OP line, and I thought, brilliant. This would be amazing. But after seeing Paul's video, I'm more inclined to go with Paul. Seeing the striations on the dial, I thought day. Yeah, I think you're on the money there, Paul. I think it could possibly be a day.
Unless, I mean, look, they can manipulate those images to it so that you can think they are whatever, really. I mean, they might all be miles out, who knows? But you got to give them credit. I mean, look at us. There's 6 of us on here tonight talking about their video. I mean,
what's it, 15-second clip? 15-second clip. They strike again, man. Marketing genius, like I said.
Clever people.
Yeah.
You know what I'd love to see, guys? You know how we all talk and we're all underwhelmed and not impressed? Wouldn't it be amazing if next week it's like, wow, they absolutely smash it out of the park?
Do you know what?
That's
Spencer?
what I'd love. That's what I'd love.
Do you know what, Spence? Honestly, I've got a real gut feeling they're going to pull a real rabbit out of the hat next week. I tell you, that steel bezel with the gold numbers.
GMT.
Yeah. I mean, that looks, whoa. I think that's going to be something really special.
That looks like a gold GMT for sure. I don't know whether yellow gold. It looked a bit rose gold to me, but it could be yellow gold GMT.
Yeah.
It looks like they're going to show some love to the Rolex Cellini. That crown's got to be it's got to be the Rolex Cellini, the no crown guards.
Has to be, doesn't it?
Yeah, it has to be a Cellini. I'd love to see a Cellini World Time, but I think they'll be doing some different colored dials, maybe.
I think we're going to see a clear case back. I know we had this debate.
No.
Oh,
No.
Dee. Alex, shut
Alex
me up
not going
the
to
other
have
night.
that. He's
No,
not gonna
no,
have that.
there is a clear
No.
case back on one of the Cellinis, mate. Already, you got it wrong.
No,
Yeah,
we're going to
there is,
see
there
this.
is.
We're going to see Christian Ward on a NATO strut. What do you think of this question here? Age-old question for panel: sub date or no date? Well, for me, it's 100% no date, pre-ceramic and ceramic. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I think that's the classic. That is the classic sub, isn't it?
Yeah. Uncle
Yeah, I
John
think
was
like-
asking me this question, and he said he wanted it to be modern production subs, not pre-ceramics. So
It's gone back a lot more balanced. I mean, on our sales, it used to be probably 80-20 in favour of dates. I'd say it's close to 50-50 now. There's not much in it. I'd say dates are probably 60-40, if I'll be honest, on our sales, roughly. But it used to be a lot more. It really did.
You know, Spencer, I was saying that maybe you're in the Guinness Book of Records because when you mentioned you've sold 50,000
More
watches,
than 50,000. I mean, that's where I have. We went back and went through some of our data of the number of pieces of different models. Last time I looked, the 16613, the LB, we were at close to 1,000 pieces. I mean, that, Paul, you remember that watch? I mean, I remember at Birmingham one year selling about a dozen to one retail customer.
Yeah, you couldn't get enough of them.
They were in the region of 3.1 to 3.5 back in the day.
How many did you have? How many?
Sorry, I remember selling a dozen. We used to do the NEC show in Birmingham every February, the Spring Pet, and we used to do the London show where you had Olympia and Earls Court. It used to be at Earls Court and then moved to Olympia. But as I say, I remember doing an invoice and it was quite sizable at the time. It was close to £40,000, and that was a dozen blue subs. Yeah.
Wow.
I remember going to the Munich Watch Fair many years ago, and before Watchfinder changed hands, I remember their buying reps walking around. I don't know if you remember this, Spence, but they come to a cabinet and there might be 40 sports watches in there, mostly subs and GMTs, and they just look through the glass and they go, "I'll take that, and that." Didn't even look at them. But obviously, they were all going to go back for whatever work they needed before. But boy, I've got to tell you, I've never ever seen a buying pattern like that in my life. Talking about Munich, Spence, we got to get all the boys on a trip to Munich, haven't we?
Yes, we have to look at the dates coming up. Have you looked, Paul? We'll discuss it. We'll have a look. Definitely,
I'll have a
maybe
look,
in the next few months.
Yeah.
Speaking of German speakers, sorry, Alex, go ahead.
By the way, we've got somebody very special watching that sent me a text saying, "Kalispera, Alex Moore, I'm watching you." That's my mum.
Oh.
Hello, Mum.
Hi to Mum.
Hello, mi teramo. No, Alexis, por las noches.
Guys, as well, I think we should have a special mention today. I don't know if any of you are aware, but it's a special day. This is the 3-year anniversary on the 23rd of March 2020, where we went into lockdown on the Monday evening on the 23rd of March. Equally, it's my mother's birthday today, which is also an important day, being the 23rd of March.
Birthday.
Happy birthday.
So,
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to Maxine Dreyer.
80 years old today.
Wow.
I'll tell you what, Spence, as I said to her yesterday, she looks younger than you.
I must
really,
say,
thank
Spencer,
you for that, Paul.
your mother's an absolute diamond. When I was at the AV Augusta show, she came and she was asking people for drinks, and she got me a bottle of water, and she was a lovely lady to meet.
Thank you. Well, she's trained me well. She used to work with me in my jewellery stores and only gave up sort of 10 years ago.
I'll tell you what,
with me
Thomas, have you ever met John, his dad?
Yeah, I did. I met him at the AV Augusta.
Honestly, what a lovely family. I mean, John makes me laugh. How old is John? Spence?
John is 87.
87. The year before last, he was out on my boat with us.
Really?
He's out on the rib, wasn't he, Spence?
Yeah. Yep.
What were you doing on the boat, Paul?
Was out on the rib, just giving it a blast.
Trying to knock me in the water.
Yeah, trying to get Spencer over. Yeah.
First time I met your dad, Spencer, was at Watch Pro. Lucy comes up to me. We've got a guy who's down as Nilesh, and he's saying something totally different. He's definitely not a Nilesh. And I go, I can't understand. What name is he under? And when I realised it was your dad, like, fucking hilarious, mate. Oh, my God. Good times.
Yeah, lovely parents, Spencer, I must say.
Thank you.
Look, I want to basically, we'll do a shameless plug for the BQ Watch Show, A to Z of watches. We've got 24 brands now confirmed, guys. So I think we're at full capacity. We've got even the Fit Factory going to be there. We've got a couple of Intercontinental ex-boxing champions. And the guy's actually starring in EastEnders now as well. So he's also an actor. He'll be there with the crowd as well. So look, really, really good times. But people have been questioning me about the hotels, Spencer. And I want to just basically say, look, we've got the Red Lion. That unfortunately has been booked out already on those days. But there's a couple of Premier Inns, the Hilton, the Travel Lodge, Boreham Wood. They're all very doable.
And you got the Village as well. There's the
Spence,
Village in Elstree.
Can I just make a suggestion there? What was that hotel that you put me up in the first time I come up and stayed with you?
That was the Village in Elstree.
Yeah.
That was a nice hotel.
That's
Village,
right.
It was only sort of 5-10 minutes away.
That's
What we do is, Dee, on the website, when people register, we'll put a link to all the local hotels so we can guide people.
Send them a
good
newsletter.
Yeah.
Send them a newsletter or something. Just give them advice.
Just recommend a hotel where everyone could stay, so it could get a group meetup sort of hotel.
Yeah.
All watch people can meet up.
Yeah. Well, we'll be able to meet up afterwards at the Red Lion. I mean, we're not sure on the hours yet. Dear, we put down the hours of what we're doing.
Yeah, it's 11 to 6. But the
We're-
exhibitors will be there early, so.
Yeah, we'll do somewhere. We'll arrange something. Definitely.
We've even got interest for the next one, Spencer, because we're at full capacity now. I've had 10 other brands come forward saying we're interested now after they've seen the promo video and that. So we're looking good for the next one. So I think we'll have a couple lined up before we even do the first one at this rate.
See, the only problem is I better get this showroom open. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I know. I'm getting worried. I'm going to have to go down there, guys. You will give it a lick of paint before it opens up.
What did you think of the showroom, Dee, from what we've seen? Because me and Dee actually went down to go and see it. It's not finished, obviously.
It's not finished, but I'll tell you what, I've been to pretty much all the ADs across the UK, and I would say this is the biggest watch showroom there is in the UK. And no word of a lie, there isn't anything at that scale. I don't know what Spencer's planning to do, because there's not enough watchmakers in the UK that could fill up his watchmaking.
Can I give a quick plug? I've got a video coming out tomorrow with a full tour with the boss man himself. We go right through it. So everyone, if you tune into my channel tomorrow night, you'll get a full update on what's going on. He's even put a gym in for Alex.
That's it. But I will say this: I've been to a few workshops, and I was pretty impressed by Spencer's workshop, the actual workshop where the watchmakers are. And I got speaking to some of them. One in particular, and he knew his stuff, but the whole layout, the organization, and also the way, I don't want to say too much just for security, but the way that you could see the watches and how organized everything was and the quality of the pieces. And I'm not just saying this, but the fact that Spencer's got the pieces in speaks volumes, because not all dealers, but a lot of dealers tend to work on the basis that they can get that watch, but don't have it in stock. But I think you've got like 700 pieces, haven't you?
Thereabouts, yeah. I mean,
700 watches.
Website. Yeah.
Was that your first time down there, Alex?
Yeah, that was my first time to actually go into the shop and actually see the workshop. But it was more of the organization. I could see how well organized was. I could see how people were talking on the phone, how everything was managed, how everything had tickets on it, job descriptions, barcodes. It was amazing. It was just amazing to see.
Yeah, I spoke to Andy at the MV Augusta.
Yeah.
Your watchmate, one of your watchmakers, and he was a great man. Gave me lots of info, and was very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Dee, can I just ask you, and Spence? I mean, first of all, Dee, I mean, mate, I'm really, really impressed with the way that you've put all this on, because like I was saying to Spencer yesterday, this ain't just about the money, is it? I mean, this is all about us having a lot of fun and a lot of enjoyment.
It is, yeah.
Making
It's
new
about
friends.
Yeah. The way I see it, look, I've always let things grow organically, and it's a bit like what happened at World Time. It wasn't about money or anything. It was about coming together.
Yeah.
And the money will come. You know, that's how it is. The money will come. But let's get everyone together. Let's grow it organically. Let's get the brands happy. You know, they want to interact with people. They want to share their passion. And Spencer's given us, you know, a platform to showcase these things and bring everybody together. You couldn't have asked for anything more, to be honest with you. I think,
it's great for the brands as well, Dee, because they're
Yeah.
going to get YouTube coverage that they couldn't buy, aren't they? Really, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
they're going to get amazing coverage. The only problem that I can see is how are we going to play? How are we going to fit everyone? Everyone is going to want to come. That's the.
We're doing time slots. We're doing time slots. I've already had the only complaint I've had. Oh, Dee, I don't want to just be there for an hour. Mate, listen, what we do, we'll figure out on the day. Look, I'm trying to manage everybody's expectations. Bear with us. It's the first one. We're going to be learning as well.
We've done this, Paul. Remember the other show we done at BMW and MB Augusta? What we can do is give people 2 hour time slots. Don't worry if you're running a bit late or there's a problem. It just helps us manage the people. That's all. Are you with me? Without it going crazy. Paul, you done your show like a Brighton. Otherwise, we can't get all the people through. I mean, we're not going to kick people out, but if we've got something to work to, then we can try and get the right people through the show. But, you know, it's not a set time slot, but it just gives us some indication to manage the day. That's all.
Yeah, the good news is we've got the Red Lion there. It's quite a large pub. It's got a bit of a function room there. They're going to be very happy. They're going to make a lot of money. It's going to be like World Cup time for them. You know what I mean? They're going to make a lot of money on the day. So maybe we'll give them heads up to expect a bit of a crowd as well, Spencer. I'm sure you know them very well.
Yeah,
there,
absolutely, absolutely.
But the thing is, we've got non-watch brands that want to exhibit at the show. People that I know, you know, from Stefano Ricci, the luxury brand. You know, we've got the cabin guys that produce high-end luxury cabins. They want to build something in your space. But I'm like, I don't think we've got room for that. We need to get a license to see if they can build their cabins on the pavement. Maybe we could serve some sort of, I don't know, have the goodie bags in there while they go and have. I don't know. We can think of something, but no, there's a real buzz and excitement about it. So it's really good.
And this is what we've said. It's all about luxury. It's all about the ethos of all us guys, all of what you portrayed, Alex, Dee, Thomas, and Giuseppe. All about people being safe, people being fair, people being honest, and just showing off everything. Not in a in a nice way. So we will be doing this, and there'll be plenty of opportunity of other luxury items. So not only watches, jewelry, diamonds, security, all of these things. So we will watch the space of all the shows that we're going to put on and to show people a bit about what is out there.
Exactly. It's like creating the synergy, you know, of all different types, you know, diamonds, jewelry, you know, you'll get some people who never think of maybe buying a watch going there. And, you know, it's all about getting as many people in that may be interested. I think that's the best way. But super chat from Mr. GMT, superstar panel. Awesome to see you all boys together. Stay sexy.
Thank you, Mr. GMT.
Mr. GMT. I wish you could come, my down under brother. We'd love to have you one day.
Maybe this is the best thing that's happened for the community in a very long time. I think it's amazing. I really do. I mean, I was at the Spencer's place yesterday, and I'm wandering around with the camera, and I'm actually finding myself getting really excited. And I'm thinking, hold on a minute, this has got nothing to do with me. You know, I was actually getting excited.
Hang on, wait, guys. It's something to do with all of you, because part of it is all the coming together, that we all come together. Paul, I've known you now for over 3 years, and it's been great meeting you. Dee, I met him at my MV Augusta show. And Alex, that's where I first met yourself, Thomas, and Giuseppe as well. So it's just about that we can all come together, we can all meet up. The fantastic thing is with this, you know, when you go to book a show, Paul, and we looked last year in Brighton, and we looked at dates, and they said, oh, this date is full, that date full. You're not going to have any of this. We've got 52 weeks of the year where we have got, this was one of my dreams, to have our own event space that we are in control of. We can do it whenever we want, because we have the space, the technology, and we can plan it and organise it. You know, I'm hoping to have sort of shows most months. Some months there'll be 2 shows, so we can just do whatever we want, whenever we want.
Spencer, I've got a question for you.
Sure.
Nobody's watching.
Go on.
A Submariner date 2013 box and papers.
Yep.
What would you offer?
Probably actually I had one the other day, in the region of about £8,500 to £9,000.
That's what you'd offer?
Yeah, fair bid.
Yeah.
Without a computer, that's just straight off the top of my head, because I know I had one the other day.
Okay, well, I've got one coming, so I'll send it to you then.
Okay.
No.
Look, I've got plans for Spencer. I might make him an AD at this rate, because off the back of me talking to the brands, I'm now officially a UK distributor of 5 brands, Paul.
Really?
So
Wow.
I've caused myself a lot of headaches. That's all I'm going to say. But it's all looking positive. I think we could have a showroom there at this rate. So it's looking very good.
What is
Sard in the house as well.
Yeah. What is the distinction? Yeah, Joel's good guy.
Yeah, really good guy.
Good
I
solid
dealt
guy.
with him. Yeah, really nice guy.
He is.
Yeah.
He is.
So Alex, come on, tell us. You've got questions. You've got to answer tonight. You've had a few come through.
So
we've got 46 people watching.
I just wanted to go back to the Rolex releases quickly. I know that Alex was bashing titanium last on the last show.
Oh, these watchmakers.
I'm wearing my titanium Panerai today. So
What's everyone wearing? What's everyone wearing?
I'm wearing my titanium Panerai 352.
Nice.
Sub steel and gold as because my IWC I don't really wear much. It's
I'm
in the
at home,
safe,
nothing.
Spencer?
Fat lady.
Lady, Giuseppe?
Pepsi.
I've got my 16030 Buckley dial, white dial.
Oh,
Nice. I've got the Tudor Chrono Monte Carlo.
Monte Carlo, gorgeous.
Thomas, I wasn't bashing titanium, but I can't get excited over it. You know, it's like a fake metal. It's too light. It's annoying to polish. It's not very pleasing. Do you know what I mean?
I love the colour though, the grey of.
See, I don't like the colour of it. I agree with Alex. I've never been a lover of it. It's always disappointed me, but when I pick it up, it's always a watch that underwhelms me. But look, I understand why people might like it. It's just personal preference, isn't it?
I was just going to say, we've had the Deep Sea Challenge already. I mean, that huge chunk of a watch, 50 millimeters. And there's people saying that possibly we might get a sub for the anniversary in titanium. But we've seen Ben Ainsley wear the Yachtmaster. And do you think we might get a Yachtmaster in titanium this year, or Yachtmaster 42?
I don't
Anybody's
see
guess?
Your guess is as good as mine. I've no clue.
I'm gonna have a bet with Spencer though. What do you want to bet, Spencer, that they will not ever bring out a glassback Rolex? Not Chilean.
Go on.
What should we bet?
They've launched one, Alex. I think you've got to be careful, mate. They did do.
Hang on.
Come
on.
No.
Go ahead with the bet.
Okay.
They haven't brought out official Rolex with a glassback. Rolex, as in. No, but that's not official Rolex. Though.
No, but Cellini. There is a Cellini model with one. Alex.
Yeah, but that's Cellini. Yeah, but
so what? It's still Rolex. You can't.
No,
it's like me saying,
I think Alex is referring to a sports watch.
Sorry. Yeah, Thomas.
Oh, no,
yeah,
so you can't make a bet on the brand and say, it's only sports models.
No, there's never. They'll never do it. Their movements are not.
Maybe I'll put a cheeky bet with you. 10 Souvlaki. Nick Chevalier.
Thomas, should we do the questions?
Yeah, go for it.
The first one is, I'm going to read this out. Hello, Alex. Can you please recommend a trustworthy service person for my watches in USA, California? Well, I can, but I don't want to mention it on the live stream because he's quite a private individual. But if that person emails me, which is Big Al's Gold Watches 7847, then I'll gladly refer you to somebody that I highly trust, that I've known for many, many years. That's not a problem. I mean, because to send me the watch, you're going to have issues with customs, and that is a nightmare. Plus, you're going to have to insure it. So it would make sense to use somebody in your own country.
Whereabouts in California?
It doesn't actually say. It just says USA, California, but I'm not sure.
Because that's a big old state.
Oh, it's huge, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's huge. It's huge, but it's still better than sending it to the UK, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
My next one is, hi, Alex, just asking your advice on watchmaking, servicing, and detailing watches. If I was to try and get into it for a job, I'm passionate about watches and I'm a collector. I'm 42, but I have no degrees from college or school. Is it still possible to get on a course? What would be the best way around it? So 42 years old. So if I was to go back in time in watchmaking in terms of how I'll get into it, I would highly suggest the WASTEP in Switzerland. So not only are you going to a different country, but it's extremely intense. It's an extremely intense course. It's more intense than the British School of Watchmaking, which is based on the WASTEP. But also you get to most probably want to learn a different language as well. And the contacts you'll make is vast. So
it's hard to get in though, Alex. It's hard. You have to get an invite as well. You need someone to sort of like say, yeah.
Not the WASTEP in Switzerland, no.
But no, the Swiss School of Watchmaking you do?
The one in the UK, yeah, there's only like, I think it was like, how many applicants is there? There's not, I don't know how many there is exactly, but it's a small amount. So you can either get sponsored by a company like Omega, or you can do it privately. Either way, you have to go through a lot of checks before they'll let you on it. It's hard to get on the one in the UK, but the one in Switzerland, the main one, would be the one I would go for. Because once you get that, you literally have a passport around the world.
Yeah.
However, when you do the WASTEP, you've only learned less than 10% of watchmaking. It's going into the actual industry and dealing with clients if you're shop front as well, or if they're wanting you to deal with clients. But a lot of companies will take on WASTEP students and just then reteach them to how they wish to be, whether that's carousel servicing or full servicing.
You got a question in the chat? Jonathan Higgins, the third.
Question to Alex, in how far do the tweaks on the Powermatic to increase power reserve to 80 hours affect precision and long lasting? Well, they push down, I believe, the vibrations per hour, which makes the watch last longer. I'm not very familiar on the movement itself. I mean, Dee was actually telling me that, I think it was you that said that there's been issues servicing them. Is that correct? Or?
Well, I think they're not easy to service because it's a watered down version of a 28, 24. They've lowered the beats vibration as well per hours. Was it 21,600?
21,600, yeah.
Which means it's going to be less accurate in regards to that, I would have thought, yeah. And just to give the increase of the power reserve.
Well, also the IWC is quite low on the vibrations per hour, and that's an 8-day watch. But obviously the barrel is huge on that. So, but I believe that they've kept to the same sort of size completely on everything on the 2824, but the vibrations are lower. Plus the balance is different though. It's a different sort of balance, and it's actually got the screws on the balance rather than the normal regulation, beat arm regulation at the top. Let's have a look. What about this one here? For Alex, why don't you like the Powermatic 80? It's not that I don't like it. It's just certain watches, I think, have movements where a lot of them, where the movement is actually exchanged, it's not serviced. So that's why that's why people have asked me, why do I not like the Cartier movement in the new Cartiers? As far as I know, that movement has been produced to be movement exchange, which is mexing. They don't really service that movement. They just basically flip the movement. But on the previous movements, like the 2892 and the 2892 bolt-on, those are much nicer to service, in my opinion.
Here's a question from Rick Fowler. He said he'd love to know your thoughts on stabilizing cracked and crumbling tritium loom on vintage watches. Is that something you have experience with?
Yes, especially on the older Speedmasters. I always see the luminosity start to deteriorate, And what's really annoying is that the luminosity will start to go on the glass. So the customer wishes to keep the luminosity on the dial and hands. But what happens is when you interrupt the dial and hands and take the hands off, then the luminosity can start to actually come off the hands.
Crumbles.
So you could, yeah, it crumbles, exactly, Paul. It crumbles. So then you could service the movement, and then, especially being a black dial, you've got all these bits of luminosity all over the place. So I always say to customers that if you've got like the old Speedmasters, Seamasters, whatever, it's always best, in my opinion, at least change the hands and keep the old hands because of that reason.
Alex, what period do you reckon was worse for that? I've got my own opinion on it, but I'd like to hear yours. What decade or decades would you say was worse for that sort of thing occurring?
I would say probably around, so I've got a 1974 Speedmaster. I would say around the 70s.
I was going to say 75 to 83, that sort of period. I think, yeah, all through the 70s perhaps, but right up to about 1983, there was that problem, I think.
Yeah, and this is the issue, Paul. You know, it's like this. What do you want? Do you want a watch that's fully original, that's just got luminosity all over the place and just looks distressed? Or would you want a watch that at least has been serviced either by Omega or someone that is experienced with Omega with genuine hands and your old hands back? I mean, I'm going to ask Spencer, what would he prefer if that watch came into him?
I'd like the original hands as long as they weren't really bad. The other thing, Alex, I was going to ask you on that is, do you feel that Omega would lasted better than Rolex? I mean, obviously, on the older stuff, there's nothing more upsetting than seeing sort of a Sea Dweller or an old sub that's had service dial or hands.
Well, it's quite interesting because I bought in a Rolex Explorer with the old style hands, as in not the Mercedes hands. It had the previous hands on it, and it recently went in auction, and it was declared as the dial being restored and the hands being restored, and it sold for 5,000. So it had it was a 1966.
Right.
What frustrated me on that watch is that for me, those hands are incorrect for the year of the watch. Now, I wonder if it had the correct hands, what it'll be worth.
A lot more.
I think a lot more. Yeah, a lot more. Yeah, exactly. A lot more. But I'm just very careful with restorations because some people, you could restore a dial and then someone might actually devalue it, saying that the restoration is not good enough. So what do? Do you leave the dial as is or do you restore it? It niches. I've spoken this before on your show. It niches. It depends on who does the dial restoration. This is the issue that I have. You know, you could have some of the biggest collectors all sat around. They look at one watch and one will say, "Nah, I wouldn't buy that," or "I'm not happy with that dial," and one would say, "Yeah, no, I would buy it." You know, it's more of preference. It's more of preference.
It's a great topic actually, because that also kind of moves over towards the refinishing question as well. But go on the dials, Alex. I've got a great example. My dad had a little watch for his 21st, and years ago I decided that the dial was completely shot. And I decided to have the dial refinished. And when it came back, it looked good enough for me to wear. But I've got to be honest, I actually regret doing it now because that wasn't the dial that my dad used to look at.
Yeah.
So there's you know, from a retail viewpoint, sometimes the refinished dials will make better money, especially on the vintage dress watches. But on the sports watches, always original.
I think on everything really, you can always tell a refinish. They're just too fresh to paint. I mean, but if you look at a bubble back from the 1930s or 1940s, those dials are goddamn but ugly unless they're restored. I mean, they are almost ineligible. You can barely tell, you know. And then when they're beautifully refinished by someone like Mr. Sonny, one of the best dial restorers in the world. Well, they do the work for Rolex.
Exactly.
I mean, the daughters are
No,
running it now.
no. Bills did the work. Bills did the work for Rolex, but then they lost it because they used to have the correct tampon prints. But then something happened; they no longer do the work for Rolex, and Rolex do not even like restorations full stop,
Yeah.
do they? They
No,
don't.
they don't. No.
But Sony's good. There's
Sony's
actually
very
others.
good.
I use others that are better.
I personally, I mean, obviously, Mr. Sonny's daughters work in the industry as well. I mean, I've never personally seen anything better than Mr. Sonny, but you know, I may be wrong, but I think he's fantastic.
Totally agree.
Guys, the question for the panel, right? I've been offered a Rolex Submariner. I think it's the 3536 Philip, the watchmaker. He's got a couple of them. The dial hasn't been touched, but the hands have all been refinished, Alex, and the case. Does that really devalue the watch? Because he's saying he wants like 32K for it.
32K?
Yeah. This is a big crown Submariner. Circa 1960s.
That's a bit high. Isn't that me, Spence? That's a bit high, isn't it?
What is it? 6536? That seems
it's a big crown. It's
Is that referred to the big crown or the big red?
That's a James Bond, I think.
James Bond one, because he knows that I was interested in that watch, and he goes, "Look, Dee, I've got one. If you want it, you can have it for around 30, 32." And I was like,
"Look, something like sorry to interrupt you, Dee, but something like that, you have to be really, really careful. I mean, what would I do in that situation? I would actually be willing to pay the estimate from Rolex, which I think is about £2,000, £2,100. That's if he's willing to knock that off for you and just send it to Rolex just to see.
Yeah, I've known him for many years. This guy, you know, Philip, who I'm talking about, Alex. He's a very intriguing guy, and I don't want to upset him or anything. I didn't want to say, "Oh, can I send it to Perpetual-Time or someone like that?"
No, look, listen, you need something like that. I know who I would turn to, stuff like that. Like Mike Wood is definitely somebody that would have a look at that. Haywood Milton is another gentleman that would definitely give you advice on that, because these people are much more experienced than any of us on this panel, and that's basically their bread and butter, really. They really know their stuff about.
I always used to send my people to Mike. You know, if anyone needed advice on anything like that, he was the man for me.
I think it really depends on how pretty it looks. You got to see the watch and how hands to the dial look. That would be my view. I would say if the dial's original and the hands on, I'll be looking to try and find a set of hands. But it's a tall order. It's a big job to try and do it. But that would be my thing that I would look for.
The last job Philip did for me was this Zenith Stellina. You can see that. Can you see that? That's a 37. Where he restored this for me. He'd never touched the dial, but he sorted out the hands and that. But they've started to degrade, Alex. This was restored about, I don't know, 7-8 years ago, and
they're degrading already.
You're degrading already. I don't know what he did. I think he just cleaned the handset, but I'm getting loads of like degrading bits in the dial now. And what would you suggest?
He would have. I don't believe he would have replaced them.
No,
I think he would have just cleaned them. And there's one thing I hate. Well, hate's a strong word, but it's one thing I really dislike is when people restore Submariner dials because of the loom. They basically destroy the value of the watch just because they want to see it at night. I've never quite understood that, why you'd get a vintage Submariner and decide to reloom the dial and hands.
Yeah, it's terrible when it's like dabbed on, like toothpaste on it. It looks terrible.
Yeah, but even when it's done well, it still isn't right, is it?
It doesn't matter. It's never right. Never.
No, it's never.
I think my advice to anyone considering having any sort of serious work done, and particularly on sports watches, is do your research and speak to someone like Alex that can advise you as to, you know, what would advisable, what would be advisable, what isn't advisable. I mean, Alex, how many times have people taken a Rolex in for service and the bloody things come back with a dial that's worth a fraction of the original.
Yeah, that's another problem as well.
That's the way to halve the value, isn't it?
Exactly. And to make the best of it, it's on an exchange basis.
And you got to pay for the privilege, but that never used to be the case. Years ago, Alex, you used to get the parts back, didn't you? Years ago.
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I had somebody that said to me that they were offered their old parts back on a percentage.
I heard that as well.
I heard that is the case. When you send stuff in, if you need a new bezel, if you give them the old, like on a Daytona bezel, it's double the money if you send something in without a bezel. Double the money.
There's a lot of people. Do you know what they do? There's, like the Kermit. There's some people that will take out their original Kermit bezel, put a fake Kermit bezel in, and send it to Rolex for a service, hoping that they'll exchange the bezel, which they end up doing. So they then
sometimes they do. Yeah.
Sometimes
they do it.
Then they have two bezels, two original bezels.
Yeah.
That's pretty common.
But just going back, Paul, to some of the dials and the blue sub, like the bimetal we spoke about.
Yeah.
Some of the nicest watches and the dials, where they come from and how they arrive. And this was explained to me many years ago. It's quite interesting. In Italy, Germany, cab drivers out there, as we know, all drive their Mercedes and their left-hand drive. So especially Italy, where the weather's a bit better, and Spain, a lot of Europe. So they'd sit there driving in the cab, and from holding the steering wheel, the window's down, the watch is out the window, because most people are right-handed. They wear the watch on the left. And the bleaching of the sun is what gives that beautiful colour to some of the dials. And that's where they've come from. Just think about it.
Tropical climates, or not tropical, but hot climates.
Yeah, and we've all seen on the blue subs where you get the Cadbury style. Where it goes that purpley colour.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean that's nice, really.
Giuseppe,
nice.
You must have a few family members with that sort of tropic
the old cab drivers.
Unfortunately, not now.
You'll have a load of watch collectors tomorrow putting their watches in the window.
And then
it's going to happen in the UK.
Someone will come along and grab them.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, I mean, if you were to take and I've mentioned this before, if you take your Mercedes or Porsche to Porsche, you would expect them not only to you're paying for the privilege, but for it to be worth more money, or at least maintain its value. But it's different with watches, and this is what a lot of people don't understand.
Alex, I think that's a really good subject, for a video like from yourself on your channel that a lot of people should share. A real educational video about the dangers of servicing with unscrupulous, not unscrupulous necessarily, because I'm not going to call Rolex unscrupulous, but
they don't understand it, Paul.
They don't understand it.
They don't understand. It's terrible to say, but they actually just believe you put a service dial. If something's faulty, you replace it. But like you say, you can have a 20 grand watch, spend a few grand on it, and halve the value. And people think, "Wow, how can that happen?" But it can.
Imagine taking a vintage that you could take a vintage Daytona in there that was worth 250 grand. It could come out worth a fraction of the price.
You could exactly. I've seen it. Look, guys, Alex, you definitely must have done. I've seen it done many a time.
Oh, listen, I've seen some crazy stuff done, and some of the prices that some of these parts go for is just ridiculous, It's just vintage hands, Daytona hands, the Bakelite GMT Master with a Bakelite bezel.
I've got a 6542. Actually, wow. Alex, when you were in the other day, I should have shown you that. But I can't find a good bezel. People want 50,000 for the bezel. And not only that, Dee, they crumble. You buy an old bezel and it crumbles. The one I've got has an aftermarket bezel, but I can't find one.
You won't
Frankenstein mania. Frankenstein. It's like WWE when it comes to vintage, isn't it? You know what I mean? You got to be careful. Thomas, you're into your vintage, aren't you?
Yeah, I was going to ask Alex. I mean, how old a vintage watch would you service? Would you service the 6538 Bond Sub or 6238 pre-Daytona? Or
well, I've just completed a Paul Newman Daytona, which was 6,000 plus VAT for me to restore.
Wow.
The dial restoration on that, I'll show Paul, is not done by VSonic. It's impeccable, Paul. I'll show it to you the before and after. Vintage watches you have to be really careful of, obviously, because parts being obsolete, and then you have to get parts made. Even on certain like Pateks, it's not uncommon for Patek to quote 6 to 12 months. They recently finished a watch of somebody I know, took 2 years. 2 years. I mean,
Wow.
it's just ironic, isn't it? You got a watch and it takes 2 years to service the damn thing. But
Jesus Christ, you grow out of love. You have to wait 2 years. You know what
I
I mean?
know, it's nuts, isn't it? For me, it'll probably be about 40 years, 35, 40 years.
Right.
And my pet peeve is the Tudor Submariner movement. The reverses always fail on those, and trying to get a set of original reverses that are actually in good condition is difficult. But it's really frustrating because you are more than able to service the watch, but trying to get the parts is
that's what makes it difficult. Yeah.
And then you've got the customer that rightfully so doesn't understand this, and they're thinking that you're taking this long, but you're not. And then because of the parts restrictions, you're having to ask your mate, who's asked his mate, who asked his mate, and before you know it, there's 6, 7 people waiting for one part. And unfortunately, we are restricted to what we can work on. And the irony is that I've actually gave access to Rolex parts to Rolex accredited watchmakers because they're not on the level for those parts. Imagine that. There's me, who's not Rolex accredited, giving parts to a Rolex accredited watchmaker. What a kick in the balls that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember looking at a 321 pre-Speedmaster, and you said stay away from it and don't bother going there. I remember.
No, because some vintage watches, Thomas, are like a bit like, I always say this, like when you go in the auto trade and say, oh, that Mercedes 600 6-liter V12 looks cheap. I'll go and buy it, but you know full well when you buy that
There's
car.
something wrong with it.
If it's
That's why it's
Mercedes,
cheap.
mate, but yeah.
All those
AMGs are a
Bentleys.
nightmare.
Yeah, all those Bentleys. The Bentleys. There's issues with flooding. They flood like crazy. Engine problems. It's going to cost you thousands. It's the same for certain watches. I get so many people contact me and say, Alex, I found this Rolex on eBay for $2,000 and it's from America. And when you actually look at it, it's got a upgraded sapphire glass, which should be plexi. It's got
6917 that's got a mineral. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's
all
just
day
missing,
long.
and it's missing the 3 or the 4 at the end. Because it's a plexi, but they add it to a sapphire and then they pay the customs to bring it in, and then it's got a valuation. It's like £1 zillion. It's.
But Alex, the other issue is the 6917, and people re-engrave, add a digit, and put a mineral. There's all sorts of strokes. Yeah. They're all over the place.
How about this one? Sorry, Spence. Have you ever seen a Rolex with a Q serial number? I'm not talking about the new randoms, the old 5-digit reference. Have you ever seen a Q serial?
I've seen the 44 reference. You familiar with that?
Which case when they change the case, don't they?
When they change the case, gets a 44 reference.
Yeah,
they're hard to sell.
I had a Q serial sub, and I couldn't make head and tail of it. And I went through St James's Square, no help whatsoever. Ended up not in Geneva, but my phone calls ended up in Geneva. And I was told that this was a recase watch, and the Q stood for query.
I've not seen one of those. I've seen the 44.
That's rare.
Actually, another bit of trivia.
It might have even been Q44. I can't remember the numbers, but it was definitely Q.
Another bit of trivia. One of the rarest serial numbers of the letters, Alex, is the C. There were not many watches made on a C.
I've not seen many.
Yeah, he's right. Yeah.
92. 92 was a C reference.
Unlike
pretty few watches. I can't tell you the reason why, but you won't see many.
Well, it's the economy, Spence. That's what it's all about.
That was 92.
It's all about. I think it was all about the international economy at that particular time. And if you go forward a bit to the R serials, sorry, if you go to the R serials,
go back 88.
Go back 88. There were thousands and thousands of them.
Again, whilst we're talking on serials, if we go back, like Paul, you mentioned 88. So 88, 89 and 90, you went RLEX, Rolex, without the O. Why they ever changed, and again, I don't think in our lifetime we'll ever get the answer, why they changed that to 2010 on the random. Alex, view on it?
Okay, so... Well, I couldn't understand why they bought. I understand. We're going to talk about this. I mean, obviously, Paul's very passionate about this, and rightly so. I think it has something to do with the whole lost and stolen issue.
Yeah, agree.
Now, I think that Rolex, regarding the lost and stolen issue, I think it was helping the pre-owned market, at which they were getting nothing from. And plus, they had to staff an individual in there. She was a really nice lady when you rang up. I mean, everyone knows,
Well, Janet.
But do you know her personally, Spencer?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
So, and the dreaded bit where, and it happened to me a couple of times where they don't ring you back. And before you know, you get a phone call from the police, or they even come and see you. And, and then you have to give the details of how you got this watch, blah, blah, blah. But I think they got rid of that because, for what reason were they doing it for? I think they got in too many legal situations. It was just a headache for them, and it was helping the pre-owned market. Now, I'm not saying that someone's told me this. I'm not saying that I've got some information from somebody. I haven't. But if I was to sit there and think about it, that's what comes in my head. There's so many conspiracy theories. I mean, there was someone on the BBC the other day talking. Well, guys, you know who that was? Oh, it's cool, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but Alex, listen, mate. You're dead right in my
Before you say anything, Paul, can I just mention something else? Sorry.
Sure.
Now, don't forget, this was the time when Henry Hudson was around, who was a well-known figure in Rolex, and he would gladly write a report on a watch, and before you know it, it's on eBay with Henry Hudson's letter.
Yeah.
So I think he got pulled back on that as well, because I think, do you know what I mean? It's. I
think there are a multitude of reasons. Some of them were fair enough, but I think look, that we're talking about the moving from the prefix number now to random rather than the lost and stolen register. So put that to one side for a minute. But the other reason is, Spencer, we come up with a theory a little bit more recently about that, didn't we?
Yeah, we've done a video, mate.
That's where. Remind us, Spencer, because I can't even remember our own theory now. What was it?
It can't have been a good one.
I'm getting to that.
Guys, if we go back to the 90s, I used to run a jewelers and pawnbrokers, and probably on a monthly basis, the police would turn up with a stolen watch. But when you used to fax through in those days, sometimes you didn't hear from them for 10 minutes. You called them back, and then the bells were going and the police were outside. So loads of watches were definitely flagged up and recovered. Why they stopped it, again, Paul and I, we've no idea. But what we said was, back in 2010, why they went random, that way you couldn't age the watch. And moving forward, as we know, Rolex plan a long way ahead. And the watch that's being released next week might have been planned 3, 5, 7 years ago when it was planned. I mean, they really do this a long way in advance. So what we were saying is the 2010, the random, was because they knew they were going to stop the lost and stolen. No one could then age a watch. And the problem, Alex, we have now, and I often come up with it, you get a watch with a lost card, and a customer will sell it to you and go, oh, it's 2017. Say a Yachtmaster 2 or an 1166 10 sub. Once the papers are lost and you've got no purchase receipt of the
How
watch,
old is it?
how old is it? All you can do is go back to the year of first production. So the 116610, I think, was 2010 or 2011. So if something's lost its papers, it then goes back to being 5 or 7 years older than it actually is. And there's nothing you could do. But when we had the letters,
We all knew.
we all knew. Never helped. It never helped us, but Rolex would know that a WX 9287 from their database, oh, that was made in 2014, but only they knew it, and it wasn't access to everyone else. So this is where they may have planned the CPO and everything else that's gone on. But I've of late had situations where someone's taken a watch in, it's reported as stolen, Rolex has taken the watch. I get a call, Spencer, you supplied the watch, you've got to give me a new one. I said, okay, I've got no problem with that. Give me the crime reference number. Don't get the crime reference. I've had situations where we haven't got the crime reference and the watch has been returned and serviced by Rolex, believe it or not.
So would you say they've done a gradual, like they gradually started to stop things to gain more power because they stopped the lost and stolen?
100%, 100%.
Now, you probably heard me say this, and I'm just saying this, just my opinion, that I do believe that the certified Rolexes will take 15-20% of the market pretty quickly. And the reason why I say that is because there's a big gap between their prices and everyone else's. Now, it's not just that, it's that the fact is that I believe they will incentivize their customers. So the fact that they bought their first Rolex from them, they will then say, look, if you ever want to sell it back to us, we're going to offer you this, or we can get you this, if this. Do you know what I mean, Spencer? I know.
Look, 100%. It's very cloak and dagger. No one knows what's going on. And I supply quite a few Rolex dealerships with pre-owned. Okay, and always have done. And more come to me because they cannot get the stock of what they want. And some Rolex dealerships who have lost the dealership then put pre-owned in because the public have seen that they're a Rolex dealership for so long. They know it's pre-owned, but they've got such a following for the watches that they can still sell them very well.
Do you think they'll take as much as that, Alex? 15%?
Yes, I do believe they will. I believe they will. I predicted that some years back, I predicted that Rolex was going to invest in Tudor and Tudor was going to take over the mediocre market and Rolex was going to hit high. Do you know what I mean? They're going to try and go to the Patek route. Now, I'm not saying because I predicted that I'm right, but I do believe, Paul, that they will take pretty large margin.
Don't worry, guys. I can see Spencer being the equivalent of Car Giant with his new premises.
No, it's interesting. I'm interested in that 15%. I'm not quite sure. You could be right. I think, you could possibly be right. I think the only barrier they're going to have is the amount of money that they're charging, because I think whilst people would like to buy CPO, when they look at the potential price differentials, it's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money, and I'm not saying
look at who they're targeting. They're targeting that high net individual, that economic status that just.
And they're also targeting
an AD.
They're also targeting people that don't know as well, because the BS they told me when I went into one of their CPOs about Hulk being the only one in London and all that. I mean, like, where the hell did that come from?
That was about $7,000. That was $7,000 more than mine, wasn't it?
$7,000.
Yeah, but I'll say this, right, Paul.
Yeah.
It was the only CPO one.
Yes, it was.
Well, it was the only one that expensive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Two things I don't like with the CPO. I don't like the prices. I don't like they take away the original box and card. The other thing is some of the numbers that they're putting on it is crazy. I think it's crazy. And the other thing, Dee, you walk into a store, you're down for a Daytona, 12.5 grand. In one hat, oh, sorry, Dee, your Daytona's not here. Maybe in the next 6 months. Oh, but by the way, if you want to buy a Daytona, I've got one here at 35 grand, a 2018 CPO. So you're 12 and a half new and you're 35 CPO, and say we're selling the same watch at 25. You send it into a Rolex for £500, £800, £1,000. It's the same as a CPO. So where does that sit? I feel they could be doing as much damage as they are good with trying to sell the new and enter the grey market.
Well, it's interesting though, Spencer, that they removed the way you could tell the age of the watch and put mixed serial numbers in, and then they changed the box and papers when it's a CPO watch. It's almost they're trying to extract stuff out of the watch for only them to sell. Yeah, they're making it niche, aren't they?
Mind you, though, I'll tell you what I do think. I think there's room for everyone at the end of the day. I mean, look, if it weeds out people that ain't strong enough in the market, then it is what it is. I mean, Spence, I don't think that you ever see competition as a bad thing, do you?
Not at all.
No.
I've got no problem with it whatsoever. I just feel that the general public, do your homework and look at the maths. And if you want to pay 20% more on a piece because it's Rolex CPO, good luck to you. Same with everything.
Let's be honest. It's the same with the car industry. You can buy a approved used Mercedes, BMW, Porsche. You're going to pay a premium. But guess what? There's a lot of used specialists out there that work alongside. The only thing I realize is, if you buy a BMW or a Mercedes and it's still under BMW warranty, say you bought it from a car giant or a used dealership, they probably won't even want to, cover that warranty, but they have to anyway, if that makes sense. So I don't know. This is the issue we're going to see.
But I think the difference in price on this CPO business is too big, especially when you've got a watch that's 2015, that's 8 years old. It's out of warranty. You send it back for a service. So if I send the watch back to Rolex for a service or it's CPO'd, it's the same thing. But my watch can have original box, original papers and service papers. The CPO doesn't have the box and has a CPO card.
It's not the same thing though. It's not the same thing because it's not Rolex that are selling it, Spencer. I know what you're saying. It's the same thing in terms of the service and they checked it. But the fact is the CPO is being sold by Rolex through their store. So then as soon as someone decides to sell that on or sell it back to them, if they sell it on, that has prestige for that potential rebuyer. It's almost like they're trying to re-show that they're the
How
people.
much prestige though? I mean, if you was to buy, Spence, hold on, if you was to buy a Daytona from a CPO on Monday, I'd be interested to know how much they'd offer you for it on Tuesday.
Yes, that would be interesting, but they could afford to pay better, even though the watch has been paid over. Do you understand?
I bet they don't, Alex. I bet they don't. The other thing is, when you bought the watch on Monday, if you've lost the card or the CPO, then what's it worth?
No, I know that's interesting because then they may be willing to replicate because they've reached. Do you know what I mean? They may
That's
be
a good question. I wonder if they will, because I have
I
never
reckon
done
they
the
will.
past, have they?
I
reckon they will. I reckon they will.
So they will on their CPO, but they won't.
But not on their new.
Yes, because the watch has been sold out of Rolex.
I wonder if anyone can find the answer to that out, because it's a great question.
Anyone on the panel?
Tell you something?
Or in the chat?
I'll tell you something that happened to me in January of this year. A customer bought a Daytona, and the papers were dated 2022. Okay, and it was bought in Jan 23, an error on the card. I bought the watch, I had the original receipt. It went back to the Rolex agent and Rolex reissued a brand new card. So they can, if they want to the Rolex agent because it was dated a year wrong. So it made the watch be a 22 and they did get a new card. It's like with anything, like the computer says no. It can say yes, but it likes to say no.
It depends on who.
Correct.
Great question there from JJ. How you doing, mate? I think that's a good question. An incentive.
Yes, definitely, 100%.
Well, that is the plan, isn't it? It's too, in terms of the period, we've got to look at it from a long-term, project for them. It's too early to even judge it. I think if we come back and discuss this in 3 years' time, we'll be able to do a better synopsis of where they're heading.
We know. But just how can they incentivize? In what way then, Dee? What do you think
Well,
they can do?
look, the way I see it is they are looking at their grade A customer base. And the CPO, from what I'm seeing from the advertising campaigns I've done for the ADs, it's only in the affluent areas that they're looking for valuers, the Mayfairs, the city centres, and so on, in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, all in the top end or the affluent areas where you've not got multimillionaires, you've got billionaires that are not going to even think twice about going anywhere else apart from their AD. You know what I mean? So they're giving them, you come back, you want to sell, you come back to us. We add it to your purchasing history and take it from there. They're going after that 1%. That's how I look at it at the moment. That economic status. So I don't think that your customers, Giuseppe and Spencer, are their focus. They're looking at that 1%, the celebrities, the guys that are CEOs of firms, Price Waterhouse Coopers type clientele, if that makes sense. Yeah,
people like Alex.
People like Alex,
people like me, exactly. People like me, yeah. Exactly.
They're not interested in people like me, They're
But look. People that are established like Spence and Giuseppe, it's a different clientele. But I think I've got a feeling that Rolex are trying to grab a completely different market and make it more VIP.
Yeah, they've been doing that for ages.
Yeah. That's what I think is going to happen.
We're not even going to be able to get even to buy their pre-owned, I reckon, at this rate. They're like, you can on waiting list for a pre-owned piece.
But the incentive is simple, isn't it? Really, look, if you buy our CPO sub, you've got to stand a better chance of getting a new Daytona.
Yeah. It's not a new concept, is it? That Porsche have been doing this, Ferrari have been doing this for years. It's not a new concept. I know people that have got 911 Turbo S's and they trade it in so they can get the new one.
Yeah, with Ferrari, if you are lucky enough to be on the list for Ferrari and you decide to modify that car or sell it on so quickly, they blacklist you.
Yeah, you mustn't sell it. Yeah,
Spencer knows this. Spencer's got many Ferraris.
Spencer's got a few Ferraris, haven't you? Forget about Top G and Bugatti. What colour is your helicopter? Spencer's got a camo one.
Paul got upset with me last year when we went to Goodwood.
He's the only bloke I know that you make arrangements to meet and he turns up in an helicopter.
Paul, I've told you, if you're a good enough customer, I'll send the helicopter. It's not
no thanks. Mate, if you gave me one, I wouldn't get
a bit like what happened with your aeroplane from LA. Only one engine will work.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, I don't fancy that.
I've got a question from Stevia MB6SE. On the SWAT, you mentioned 2 names of people you should consult if you are after a vintage sub to be original, looking for a 6538. Did not make notes of their names. Do you have a 6538 in, Spencer?
That's the sub that I'm thinking about getting, the Big Crown. I think it's a 6538, not the 653.
That's the Big Crown. I don't think I've got one at the minute.
Well,
I'll buy it. What did you give me?
We got the pre-Daytona.
You got a beautiful 6238, haven't you? That was pre-Daytona. That's gorgeous. That.
Oh yeah, that would look nice.
Nice.
So the names: James Dowling, Mike Wood, and Haywood Milton. Those are 3 of the people that know their know their stuff. Yeah, they're definitely people that if you need any information regarding vintage stuff, they're definitely people to go to.
So you've missed a super chat, by the way, from Neo, Alex. And
sorry,
I just wanted to put a question to Paul, Spencer, and Giuseppe. Are Rolex moving in the precious metals direction, do you think? Tudor pricing's been pumped up so they can sort of fend for themselves in the mid-tier bracket. And Rolex have their own foundry. They won't ditch steel altogether, I don't think, Rolex, but maybe keep, APs and Datejusts, I don't know. But do you I see fewer steel models as the years go on. and the Submariner will be spared, of course. But do you see them in the future going precious metals like two-tone and?
Well, there's more money. There's more money in the precious metal front for sure.
And less work.
Less work. And I think what Alex said earlier on about, going after the higher end customers. So yeah, sure, definitely. I think that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Come on, Giuseppe, what are you thinking, Giuseppe? Come on.
Who knows? I mean, I think they'll always have steel in their lineup, to be honest. But yeah, with gold, bimetals, there's definitely more money from a business perspective. I understand that, but I think they'll never completely get rid of steel.
No, of course not. No.
Because the most average person wants a stainless steel, whether it's a Daytona Submariner.
Sure.
So yeah, I think it'll always be in their lineup, personally.
But the steel, obviously, I mean, who would think that the steel Rangers will go for such high prices, considering it is stainless steel?
Absolutely.
I mean, you try and tell that of somebody on the street that knows nothing about watches, they think you're deluded. And plus, the fact that you're paying more for a pre-owned watch as well, it's a mind fuck, really, isn't it?
Very much so. Very much so.
Neo, I'm loving the new trend in the YouTube watch community of more streams with less toxic drama. I'm glad you guys are perpetuating the trend. Thank you, Neo.
Thank you, Neo. Good man.
Nick Nicholas has asked, Alex, is the movement in the Cartier Roadster serviceable? Yes, it's on the Roadster. It was a 2892, and in the Roadster chronograph was a 2892 Dupois Dupré bolt-on, which is serviceable. Now, the Cartier Roadster is definitely one of my favorite Cartiers. More of the chronograph than the automatic only, because the case is very well made and the bracelet is as well. And also it comes on that easy adjustable strap. I mean, I don't know who else likes the Cartier, the Roadster here.
I quite like the Cartier. I just love that crazy crown. I don't know why. It's not up to everybody's taste, but I'm quite keen. But look, guys, people in the chat, let's not forget, let's help Alex with his protein fund. So
Protein fund?
Yeah, for the bodybuilder, yeah. So don't be shy. Let's help him get bigger. Next time we see him on the screen, we're gonna have less panelists. You know what I mean? So yeah, it'll take up the whole screen. You know what I mean? So ask him any questions you want, yeah. And let's get some protein funds in as well, yeah.
Protein funds in as well. Alex, what made you choose the Bumblebee? Did you just fancy a touch of gold on your sub? Well, basically, I hit 40, the big 40, and I decided to treat myself. And I went to my AD, and I keep banging on about this story. I gave him 12 days notice with no purchase history, and I managed to get one. So he gave me an option of steel non-day or bluesy or the Bumblebee. Now, most people go for the bluesy, but it was just too flashy. It's just too in your face. It's way too in your face. I think Spencer.
Let's not forget, Alex. I think they had a bit of an incentive agenda. They are looking for a watchmaker, aren't they? At the moment, they thought, "Oh, we'll give him a sub. We've got him now." You know what I mean?
They are looking for a watchmaker, and they've told me a few times if I ever decide to go and work.
I've sent them my terms of business. I still haven't signed them yet. So they're still waiting for you to go back, mate.
So the question from who said, "Dear Alex, can you explain in layman terms as much as possible what is the issue with the 2500C movement that made Omega present the 2500D movement? Thanks for the awesome content."
The answer is I don't know. I don't even know. I'm not even going to lie to you and say I do know. I don't have a clue. Do you know, Thomas?
No.
Alex, I've got a question for you.
Cool.
A lot of people say, a lot of customers walking into a store for the first time, they'll go Rolex for Rolex Omega, which is the best one, blah blah blah. So if someone gave you a sub, a modern day sub, and a modern day Seamaster, Which has got the better movement in your opinion?
Right. So
if you're stuck on a desert island and you need that watch to last you for the next God knows how many years, which movement are you going to choose?
We're talking strictly movement here, aren't we?
Strictly movement.
Yeah.
Not just look, not aesthetics
No, nothing to do with aesthetics. No, just movement.
I would go for the Omega because of the service intervals are lighter, i.e. you can get away longer. I would go for the Omega for the service intervals. The accuracy is actually really good on those new movements. It's remarkable what they've achieved, and at the price structure as well.
Is it because of the master coaxial? It doesn't need as much, because originally the coaxial didn't need the service, and Omega made sure that it did need the service. This is the rumor. Can you clarify that? Because originally you wouldn't need to service it for what, 15, 20 years.
So the coaxial was done by George Daniels, so it worked on a less friction basis. I mean, the fact that he managed to so basically the Swiss lever escapement was actually English lever escapement, but then the Swiss took it on. And then he managed to make a complete different escapement, which was less friction and was supposedly not supposed to be oiled. But then he stuck it, I believe, in a Rolex, a Patek, and an Omega. So Rolex said they weren't interested. Patek, I'm sure it was a Patek, they said they're not interested. And Omega said they were. But it took many years to modify that coaxial into the watches, with many, many, many years of R&D. So now we're living at the time, in my opinion, at the pinnacle of the coaxial movement. And now they've bolted on into their own movements, not just on the ETA movements. And some of the movements that Omega are making now are just beautiful. And I think you get a lot for your money. You do get a lot for your money, I think. My only
Alex, good news. I'll stop you there. Omega have just been in contact. We're giving you Omega accreditation now. That's what we like to hear, my friend.
My only criticism with an Omega is the steel they use. I just think on the bracelet, there's just something about
so bloody fussy you are, mate. Accreditation gone now.
No. It honestly, I don't know what it is, but I prefer the James Bond Seamaster, not because of the 2892, but because of the certain steel.
Dee, take away the accreditation, remove it.
We're so close, so close.
The steel they use now, but okay, let's put the steel to one side. If you look at the structures, okay, the build of the bracelet is great, but the feel is wrong. But the build is good, and they've got screws.
I find that, to be honest, I find that of a lot of Omega bracelets.
Yeah, there's just not that, like Breitling steel and Jaeger steel. Jaeger steel is beautiful to work on. Breitling steel, I mean, Breitling use the parachutes, the cloth from parachutes to polish on the actual mops. They get that beautiful luster. But Omega steel, as much as I love the watches, I just think it's a bit of a letdown.
Alex, one other question that I find, I mean, over the years, obviously, handled many watches and adjusted bracelets. On a lot of the Omegas, I hate the tap out pins. Like we've said, the screws. Yeah, agree, guys?
Yeah. The older ones are shocking a little bit in regards to that, I think. But
don't Spence, I've been retired for 3 years, and I've only just started to forget those nightmares.
Spencer, do you know what's the worst one though? Do you know what the worst one is? Do you know what the worst bracelet is? To take screws out of.
I'll tell you, some of the, you know, the Breitlings where you got the links on the angle and you've got the screws at both ends.
Yeah.
And also the other nightmare is on some of the Cartiers.
Yes, the Panther, the small gold.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost, you know, sometimes where you'd have a customer, you say, "Oh, just do that." A Rolex, it's no real issue. You can do it, no problem. And Omegas sometimes, Cartier, it's almost embarrassing. You feel like you're a failure. I mean, they're just a complete jigsaw, aren't they? Complete jigsaw.
Especially when the customer's waiting as well.
Yeah, and you're trying to be cool, and the sweat's running off your And you're saying, would you like a tea or coffee? Do you want to use the toilet? You're just trying to get rid of this customer so that you can have some time on your own.
I used to send the watch downstairs to the watchmaker, and if it wasn't back up within about 5 minutes, you knew he dropped a screw or something, and it was going to be nightmare.
But it's all of these things. It's quite funny how we all share these things, but the tap out pins in Amigas, I think, are ridiculous.
Yeah, horrible.
Well, that was the reason why they went to the screws, isn't it? The pins and screws. That's one of the reasons why. But that was a drawback on those James Bond Seamasters, because so many of them sold.
Yeah, but they'd have the sleeve, wouldn't they? They'd have the pin and the sleeve that expand as it goes in. Just
a question for you, Alex.
Yeah.
Quick question for you. Like, one of the watchmakers when he gets some of those older Amiga pieces or Mega pieces, he'd say he did use a heat gun on them. Why would he do that to help get the pins out? Yeah. Is that like a trick of the trade, using a heat gun to try
You can take the case off the bracelet and you can heat the bracelet, because it might be because he's wanting to take the screws out of if it's a screw bracelet, you might want to take the screws out of the bracelet. You can heat the bracelet because the Loctite, it degrades under high heat, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There's some people that forget to take the case off who's got a plexiglass, and the plexiglass melts or pops off
onto the dial.
Well, that's the odd thing, Alex, right? Because if you heat metal, it actually expands, right? But so you're not really when you heat that screw, what you're actually doing is, like Alex said, you're actually burning off the residue of the Loctite. But yeah, heating does work.
But people don't realize, like, there's a lot of people that try and adjust their own watches, and they end up messing up the screw heads, especially the gold ones. And it looks nasty if it's not done correctly. It looks really bad, and then you can tell they start to think, "Oh, why did I do that? Why did I do that?" And they try again, and they make it.
I put my hand up. Vintage Jubilee bracelets. My God, sometimes just forget it.
But also bracelets that have not been restored correctly, Rolex bracelets, if you try and take a link out of those, it's like a jigsaw puzzle.
Especially on gold, because they use different screws, don't they? And you can't interchange them at times.
But I think one of the most nastiest is the Bell Sport Wave. Those screws on the outer bezel, some loosen, don't they? Some cross thread, or the threads start to loosen. You can't seal the watch. And it was a bad design anyway, the Abels. I mean, no one buys in Abels anymore.
I know.
Gentlemen, I'm going to love you and leave you all, because I've been on Zoom for 3 hours before I came on here. So it's bedtime for Mr. Falk. So thank you for having me.
No problem. Thanks for coming on.
Coming on, Paul.
Always a pleasure. Love you all, and I'll see you soon. Take care, guys.
Take care, buddy.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
One other bad watch, and I saw one today, Oyster Quartz. Whenever they come in, all people say, "Oh, it only needs a battery." We open the back, battery's leaked, movement's gone. I mean, they're just a write-off. They really can be at times.
Yeah, it's that.
Would you not agree?
Yeah, it's the motor, Spencer, that's really expensive on those. They're like £700-800 or something. Yeah. But if you get a good example, they're a beautiful watch. Beautiful. If you also get the case relapped and the bracelet validated correctly, it still looks like a stunning piece from this day.
Sure. Alex, is there any way of knowing though, if you buy a watch, and obviously we give 2-year warranties, is there any telltale signs that the movement or the motor may not go the distance?
Yeah. So, as in timekeeping wise.
Well, timekeeping, or that it's going to foul?
As in an automatic watch, the way I do it, Spencer, is if our watch comes in, I half wind it. So
no, the oyster quartz.
Oh, the oyster quartz, sorry. No, because that can just suddenly stop. It's just a really weird, as you know, the movement, the way it's built is really weird. I mean, it's got pallets and like an escape wheel in it, for God's sake. It's a very, very odd movement, very odd for a quartz movement. And not many watchmakers like working on them because...
You can't get, parts and can't get parts.
Yeah, parts is pretty difficult, but the all gold oyster quartz day is definitely one of my favorites. If you get a good one, if you get a real good one.
And Alex, would you work on one of those movements?
Yeah, I do box them in. Yeah, they're expensive though. They are expensive to do, but I mean, I give like 24, 28 months warranty on those. So I think it's time for us to say goodbye, guys.
Well, has anyone got any questions for Alex before he goes? It's a one in a lifetime opportunity. If you have any,
Nicola, who left one in the comments in Alex's video earlier on, he said, would you recommend he get several more affordable watches like Seiko's and Christopher Ward's, etc., or stick to 2 budget pieces like an Omega and a Rolex?
Well, it's funny you mention that because I was having this conversation with because I like to shoot guns because I grew up with guns because I was very fortunate to shoot guns with my dad and still do. And the person that sold me the guns said, he says, like watches, it's best to put your money in a few rather than a lot. And I do agree with that. I'd rather buy 1 decent watch or 2 decent watches rather than scatter your money and buy the more smaller watches. You just got to be honest with yourself how much you're willing to pay and just add an extra maybe 500 or 1,000. You just got to sit down and be honest with yourself. Don't rush to buy an expensive watch, because if you rush on something that's so expensive, you're going to make errors. You just got to.
You're going to start off buying a few Seikos then, and then sell them and upgrade to.
No, don't do that. Don't buy any Seikos. Don't listen to Thomas Burnett.
No,
I think Alex has been a bit harsh.
I'm joking, Thomas. I'm joking. Look, you just got to be honest with how much you want to spend in the first place, because you get some people that, and Dee knows this, I'm sure Spencer goes this, where they'll get a phone call and Giuseppe will have this, hi mate, you all right mate, yeah, I want to spend 12 grand, and before you know it they've gone down to 4. You just got to be honest.
You got to understand this. It's like when you're buying into shotguns. I used to have a 1-barrel shotgun, the Flaubert, with a single Hartucha, shell.
Yeah.
Then I went to double barrel. Then I went over and under Brownie. You know how it is. You got to start somewhere. Same with watches.
No,
I started with an air gun actually. A 2.2 Wembley.
Yeah, but that's for shooting though, isn't it? That's to get comfortable.
Yeah, but same with watches, isn't it?
No.
Well, you're not gonna start off give your son a sub straight away. Like my son's 8 years old. I'm giving him an SKX. When he's 18, he'll get a sub 41.
Yeah, but we're talking about somebody that's like our age or maybe slightly younger. If they want their first watch, I mean, I would rather buy a watch if I can afford 5-10 grand and buy a 5-10 grand watch rather than buy a load of smaller brands. Do you not think?
I agree with you, Alex.
What's the point?
If you've got money, if you've got a budget for it, you go straight in and buy what you want, isn't it?
He sometimes starts buying cheaper watches, though, doesn't it?
It's like the Moon Swatch, though. I know people that have got Rolexes and that, and they're buying the Moon Swatch for 200. What are they? £250?
Yeah, 228.
Yeah, but that's different because they're already in the industry of liking watches, so they can then go up, go down. If you can afford to buy 1 nice piece or 2 nice pieces, why would you not want to do that?
I've got a question for you. So you shoot clays, yeah?
Yeah.
What watch do you wear when you're shooting clays?
I wear my sub.
Well, it's all right then, yeah?
Listen, you can shoot with a gun because the recoil is not going to make any difference. It's when you're playing golf and you're playing tennis, or you're going on your helicopter.
How about go-karting? I've done that before.
Go-karting? No,
wearing my gym tier, go-karting.
Go-karting is fine. I mean, the vibrations of that is minimal, but it's more of like a hard impact, like a golf. When you bang, you're hitting the the ball, and also tennis as well. I mean, you need
to get an RM. That's what they're made for, aren't they? That's really where they outshine the rest, because you can wear them doing like combat sports.
If you believe that, you believe anything. If you believe that, you believe anything. All right.
So before we go, I'll just do a shameless plug. A couple of weeks ago on the last show, Fran Sherwin asked the question, what watch would we recommend for €2,000? And we're going to do stream on the Escapeman show on Saturday.
Great show.
2,000 first watches for around £2,000 or less. So that's going to be 11:30 GMT in the morning. So if you want to tune into that, tune in. It'd be a good show.
Fantastic. Giuseppe, here's your platform, my friend. For Others in Time, another sponsor of the Dee Time Love channel. BQ Watches, what can I say? The Guinness Book of Records of selling over 50,000 watches. That's even beating my souvlaki eating habits over the last 10 years. And that's he sold more watches than Alex has had protein shakes.
Is that how many you sold, Spencer?
Yeah, we're
Jesus Christ.
We're on stock number at the moment. We're approaching 45,000, but I had a couple of different systems before I went on to this current system. But I start back in about 2005, so we're approaching sort of 18 years of trading watches. Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot.
See, Giuseppe, that's the benchmark now. Giuseppe's like, Jesus Christ.
You've got to start
guys,
somewhere.
Look, I want to see you all at the first show on the 10th and 11th of June.
Yeah,
and
we'll
please book in. We want to see you all there. Yeah.
Don't forget to register, guys. I'll go through the list. Let me do a shameless plug with the brands that we've got. We've got Elliot Brown, Squally Out of Order, Triton, Aquastar, Urban Co., Boulder, Atawak, Venecianico, Studio Underdog, Zero West, Cyrus, Shapit, Pienche, Guillermo Mazzulli, Icobod, ML Shure, Epos, Sega Design. We've got the Fit Factor, and we've got a number of luxury cabin organizations that are going to be there as well. We've got over 23 brands. We've got some high-end brands to affordable stuff. It's going to be an opportunity for everybody to experience some really up-and-coming and some very sort of up-and-coming world-famous watch brands and get to try them on your wrists from all different price points, from 200,000 right down to £300 sterling on the day. So, guys, we look forward to seeing you, and let's build this watch community hub at the BQ Events showroom.
That's www.bqevents.co.uk.
Correct.
And if you want any one-to-ones with the brands, I can set that up as well. So you can have one-on-one meetings with the brands. I think there's always a nice touch for you to have a bit of interaction with the guys behind the brands. So Thomas, I know that you're pretty keen on this sort of thing. So I'd love to set you up with a few one-on-ones and maybe Spencer as well. I think maybe we'll do one-on-one with Shapek or Cyrus. I think that's something that would be interesting. And Giuseppe, anything that takes your fancy there?
I'll come along and I'll have a look and see what's up. But you've got some nice brands there, good brands.
Spencer, see your watches and wonders, and don't forget to tell Gavin to save me a cartel cap.
I'm sure he will. I'm trying to make it. I'm away in the States, but trying to get back to get there. Just depends on flights.
Are you live streaming, Thomas, there?
If they'll let me, I'm hopefully if they'll let me, I might do a little bit. But I'm going to
certain areas you are allowed apparently, but you're allowed to take photographs.
Yeah,
all of the place. So you'd have to ask Anna. That works for me. Is going to be there. I may make a surprise appearance, Thomas. I'll let you know closer to the date.
Oh, that'd be good.
Yeah, it's looking 70% in my favour at the moment.
Very.
Yeah, looking good, guys. Alex, I'll let you do the outro if you have one.
I don't have an outro. It's just
if you haven't dealt with this yet, it's only a matter of
time. Thank you for watching, guys. See you later.
Brilliant.
Well done,
Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.